Welcome to the Spinwhiz Comics Show. Whoa. From Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us for exclusive interviews with the publishers bringing you the newest titles in indie comics, webcomics, movies, and more.
No way.
And now, here's your host, Jeff Palumbo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. My gosh, if I could see any of you now, I guarantee we have the best looking audience ever. So it is. Comic people are extremely good looking. I don't know if you know that or not, but obviously you do. You're here. So welcome to the stream. My name is Jeff Palumbo. For those of you on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on Twitch, make sure you answer or ask a bunch of questions during the live stream. This is the Spinwhiz Comics Show after all. If you're watching on YouTube, just check below for all the links. You don't have to write them down. You don't have to try to find them. They're right here. And if you're on the podcast, they will be in transcript. So you'll be all set. Our guest tonight is actually one of our newest publishers, Silverfish Comics. Two great titles right now that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about them here because that would be ridiculous. He can pitch them much better than I can. And just to let you know, I am somewhat frazzled at the moment because I was late to the stream. Yes, Jeff Palumbo was late, not by fault of my own. My computer was having problems. Jonathan, kind as he is just like, dude, don't even sweat it. You got this. Like, just completely positive in nature. And I'm like, you still want to do this? I mean, we're only 15 minutes late. It's not like it's two days late or anything like that. But he's like, let's do this. I'm ready. So without further ado, I'm going to bring the man of the hour in. Let's do this. Jonathan Hedrick, welcome to the stream, buddy.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Heck yeah, man. Again, thank you for your kindness and your patience. Before dealing with this, you're probably like, wow, this guy just does not have his shit together.
It's no problem at all. I totally get it.
So let's start out by saying that you're really our newest publisher. So thank you for jumping in with us. We are a relatively new company as well. We're only about a year old, just over a year old, actually. But we keep finding and gravitating amazing content creators like yourself that have amazing content that people have to read. And I'm so happy that you and I connected because I really think the two stories you have, we were talking about this briefly before we started the show, is that they're drastically different. They're made for different demographics, mostly, although I think anybody is really going to enjoy them. But they're so good in what they have, and there's different nuances to both of them that make them really great, that I'm just really happy to be able to talk about them. And I can't say that every day. I mean, we have great publishers on the site, great content creators, tons of great content. But some of the newer guys, you can tell that they're learning. Your stuff seems like you are a veteran writer, and you have a veteran team behind you that knows how to tell a story. So my hat's off to you, sir.
Thank you. Yes. I appreciate you saying that, Jeff. Yeah, it means a lot to hear.
Well, the good thing is I don't even have to lie about it. Like, it really is that good. So let's get into it. We have two titles. Let's start with the one that I read first, which is FREAKSHOW Princess. You want to give us a quick background of this one, and then we're going to jump into your second one.
Yeah, sure. So FREAKSHOW Princess that was my first stab at writing comics. It's a 24-page, full-colored zombie one-shot story. So it takes place in just one issue. That actually originated as a short story that I wrote almost 10 years ago.
Oh,
and I tried to pitch it to some online horror and sci-fi magazines, and no one really picked it up at all. I didn't get much feedback. So it collected the digital dust, as you might say. And then I saw a live YouTube video that one of my local comic book stores were hosting with another comic book writer named Doug Wagner, who you might be familiar with. He did Plastic and The Ride for Image Comics. So I got a chance to ask him live on YouTube what he would recommend on how to get into comic books as a writer, and he just said, just make a comic book. With the internet as accessible as it makes things, you can do it now. You can find people that you can commission, and you can send it to a printer in a different state. So that's what I did. I found that old short story. I did some research on how to write in a comic book script format,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing led to another, and I had a 24-page script. I thought, all right, let's see what I can do with this. And then I reached out to a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists. I might be butchering the name of that group, but I started searching for my artists, and I landed on Ben Worrell, who is a fantastic artist. He's very professional and has created his own work before. He has his own publishing company out of Colorado called Sheath Comics, and he segued me into the colorist Sunil and the letterer CJ, and like you said, they are a veteran team.
Mm-hmm.
And I really lucked out as a amateur writer on my first time getting those a creative team like that. So that's basically how I formed everyone. But back to the story, is it's like I said, it's a zombie story. So you get that feel of a little bit of The Walking Dead, but not in a episodic type format, since it is a one shot. But I like to compare it more to Night of the Living Dead, because the main character is stuck in a house that's boarded up with that outside dilemma building up slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's where I really love. I'm a horror fan. I love the zombie genre, so I like that tense buildup of the danger outside.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with Freak Show Princess, with a splash of a theme of sacrifice on multiple levels, and a love story too, naturally.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, you got to have the love story in there.
of course.
I mean, that's, and I think you're right. The thing that freaks me out about a lot of content, zombie content, is the fact of it's coming and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Or at least that feeling of that. Obviously, people find ways to do whatever. But yeah, it's that impending doom that makes your fear run wild. It's even sometimes scary. Obviously, zombies ripping you to shreds and eating you are pretty fierce, or fearful. But that's really what fear is about. That's why there's a lot of movies out there that use your own fear to really make it that much more scary.
Exactly.
Blair Witch Project was sort of like that, and the fact that you just didn't know what was going on. You knew something was out there you didn't know. You could even say that, what was it with the guy? I cannot believe I'm blanking on it. The guy with the puzzle face. It was a psychological thriller. Jigsaw. Saw.
From Saw, yeah.
Saw
was those movies, yeah.
It was like the impendingness and what they had to do and what would you do in that situation that really made it creepy.
Exactly.
And I think Freak Show Princess does a lot of that as well, which is surprising to hear that you're really not a first-time writer, but you really just kind of blew the dust off the shelf and you're like, yeah, like you. So you were right in that mix of when like horror movies were huge back, obviously in the late 80s, early 90s. Then they had a resurgence. We actually have a guy coming on the show that has done horror movies. He's actually part of Source Point Press, and he did like Rotten Tail and all those movies.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously those are more of your slasher flicks, right? But this is like suspense horror.
Mm-hmm.
And just reading it, you're like, motherfucker. Like, what's going to happen-ish.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. It's great. It's done very well. You can tell that the art team knows what they're doing, which is great because you can easily throw something off like this if it's written right, but the art direction is off. It'll kill it, and yours doesn't. So that's one, and we will get back to you in writing and all that stuff in a second. But let's also talk about your other title, which has nothing to do with zombies,
Right.
at least not yet.
Right.
Capable.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, because that's drastically different. But
Yep.
I think it's not only drastically different from your first title, it's also drastically different from really anything we've read around now that I have ever read or watched. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think it's fantastic.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So Capable is, after I tested the waters with Freak Show Princess and it being a one-shot horror story, I didn't want to box myself, into one genre, and I really had the idea of Capable, so I wanted to make that as different from Freak Show Princess as possible. So Capable is my superhero story, and it's an ongoing series. Right now, there's only the first issue that's available on Spinwhiz, but more to come.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of Capable is the main character, Derek Davidson, who is a high school kid. He's shy, he's awkward, and he happens to use a wheelchair. And he, lives a typical high school kid life, and deals with those trials and tribulations in addition to being disabled. Until one day he wakes up and he now has a superpower that's opposite of what his handicap was. And because he was in a wheelchair, couldn't use his legs, now he has super speed. And we spend the first issue with him discovering that power and what else is going on in the world. And what we're going to see more as the series fleshes out is Derek's going to have to deal with the world having all these people who used to have disabilities now having a superpower. Again, that's going to be opposite of what their handicap was. So, for instance, if someone was blind, they might have laser vision or could see through walls or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to explore what some people would do with a sudden superpower after living a life of being disabled. Obviously we're going to have some people that are not going to choose the right path with those abilities, and that's what I'm hoping to dive more deep throughout this series and Capable. So I'm really excited about where it's going to go. Issue 2, art's almost done with that one. I'm hoping that will be out in end of April, depending on how things are going. I'm almost done with the script for issue 3. I have a short side story that I'm probably going to throw into someone's anthology.
Mm-hmm.
So lots more to come with Capable. I'm really excited. That's my baby right now.
Yeah, I like it, and I'm super glad to hear that you're going in that direction, that it is expanding beyond your main character.
Right.
But the fact that certain people are going to be pissed that they got picked on for so long, and they're gonna go get revenge.
Right. There's going to be some animosity.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Some are gonna be like, well, I can do whatever I want now, and others are going to be like, hey, listen, we were given gifts, and I'm sure you have other obviously just twists and turns that are coming, and I think that's great. I really want to see what a lot of people think about it. I would love to hear what people who are disabled think about it.
Yeah, on that subject, Jeff, I was holding my breath before the first issue came out. Like, thinking to myself, how many people am I going to upset with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go into it saying that I have an agenda and I'm going to speak for this community, the people with disabilities, because I'm not part of that community. So how dare I pretend I know what it's like? So it's not a book that panders to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book that involves people that happen to have that.
Yeah.
So I did, when I printed it physically and had a local signing, the first or second people in line was a couple in a chair. And I was like, all right, here we go. What do they have to say?
Oh God.
But they loved it. They picked it up, and they're looking forward to the next issue. So
That's awesome. What an amazing feeling.
yeah, it really was. It was like a sigh of relief. So
And the fact that you're giving something, not something obviously physically, well, except for the comic itself, but you're putting a spotlight on people who, again, I'm not disabled, thank God. But people that are, I really would like to know what they think about that, because there really haven't been any disabled heroes that have become superheroes, or people that are disabled, or what I'm sure you'll have some people that it doesn't trigger on certain people, or certain people become disabled and whatever, and how that whole world responds and how they look. I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of different ways you can take this.
Yeah, I mean, we automatically think of like physical disabilities, but I'm gonna dive into the mental disabilities as well too. So we're gonna see how that plays out in this world. So that this disability is it's such a broad spectrum. There's so much we could say is as a disability. If we really want to comb through it, we could say almost everyone has a disability of some type. So
That is for sure.
I think it opens up a world of endless possibilities that could go on for a long time.
I think this is going to be great. Are you going to kickstart the second issue?
Well, what I'd like to do with issue 2 is probably do like since I didn't kickstart the first one, maybe do like a issue 1 and 2 Kickstarter, and hopefully fund some money for issue 3. The Kickstarter game is, as you probably know very well, Jeff, is it's a tough thing.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's a whole. I don't think we as a society are still 100% sure what to do with that platform. I mean, a lot of people are making a lot of money off of it, but it's so unpredictable. I've seen people that had one successful campaign and then make thousands of dollars, and the second one not even get funded for half that much. So there's a lot to learn about that.
Yeah, the reason I created Spinwhiz Comics is because 7 years ago my comic failed on Kickstarter, and with as much marketing and business background that I have in e-commerce, I was like, well, damn, if I didn't do it, other people must be having a hell of a time getting the word out. And Spinwhiz Comics was in its current form was born. So
it's tough. Yeah,
it most definitely is, and I think a lot of people also. Once you get into it and you have started it or have completed one, I'd love to talk to you again about it to see what you think. But a lot of people think that, hey, we scored $4,000, and they're like, that was a huge success. And in the great scheme of things, it's not, because you only made like $200.
Exactly. And I actually have a live Kickstarter right now for FREAKSHOW Princess.
Oh,
which
good.
Is technically a relaunch. Because back in September, I launched one, and it failed. I put it at $1,000 goal, and it didn't even crack 19% of that. So since then, I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of networking within the indie community, and I hired more well-known cover artists to do an exclusive variant cover. Leanna Kangas, she's the artist for a book at Volt called She Said Destroy.
Yeah.
And she's actually from the same city I live in. So.
Oh, wow.
So she has a following. She was able to promote it, and I set the goal for half as much as last time to 500, and I did get funded in the first day. So I'm not expecting to get rich off of this relaunch, but it's enough to get increase my followers and get a little bit more notice in a different market other than my local community, because I can always rely on the local comic book stores here carrying my book, but that's just this county, so that's why I come to like your platform, Spinwhiz. I can open it up to a broader audience.
Awesome. Well, I just took I didn't know that you had relaunched FREAKSHOW Princess on Kickstarter, so I took that link and I also dropped it in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course. Well, now if you're watching on YouTube, again, the links are below. So even if you're like, Jeff, I need to stop this interview. Well, scroll down and click on one of them, because you either A, have to read Freak Show Princess or Capable. Both are great, but if you really like it, give the boy a kick, will you? So let's get a little bit into your background, because again, these titles are great. You kind of came out of nowhere.
Yes.
So, which is like what I did. So I have a ton of respect for that. But are you a writer by trade?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was definitely not a trained writer, but I've always had that writing bug throughout my life. As you're going through grade school and you're doing all your typical assignments, I've had the teachers from time to time point that out or show me, hey, you're on a different level with other people. Look at this sentence structure. And English came to me a little bit better than the other subjects, and I enjoyed it more too. So that probably helped out a lot too. And also, I've always been a fan of comic books, so I've always lived in that world and was probably learning the structure of how to write in panel formats without even realizing it. So,
but you're not. Are you a professional writer during your daytime work?
No, my daytime job, I'm actually in healthcare. So
oh my gosh.
Whole another world. I'm a licensed X-ray tech, but I don't practice anymore. I still maintain my license, but I had a real weird non-traditional healthcare path. So I got my X-ray training in the Army about 16 years ago.
Oh, thanks for your service.
Thank you. Yeah, but you're welcome. My pleasure to serve. Wouldn't change that experience for anything. They trained me to be an X-ray tech. Got out, became an X-ray tech in the civilian world, and then that somehow got segued into teaching radiology, and did several years of that. And one thing led to another, and I was asked to become an analyst to verify the billing for radiology at a hospital organization, because there was more and more imaging studies are being more popular throughout modern medicine now, and a lot of people don't know how to bill correctly for that. So I was going back and auditing bills versus the chart and making sure they weren't undercharging or overcharging. And then that led to where I'm at now, where I train providers and their clinical staff on how to use the computer software, on how to dictate and place orders and view patients' charts and stuff like that. So very odd, non-traditional career path for an X-ray tech.
Holy crap. And then I figure that you're very much like the rest of the indie community, where you get home, and while you probably like your job, you get home and you're really like looking forward to, because it's something spurred in your head and you're like, oh, that'd be really cool. And then you start writing it, you're writing it like during your lunch break, you're putting little notes in, or in between certain things, you're like, oh, I got to write down that little piece. And then when you get home, you're like excited to start writing it again. Is that the way you are now?
Oh, absolutely. There's days where I'm at my, full-time 9-to-5 job. I'm like, this is getting in the way of my writing right now. I wish I could just, go home and get on my keyboard. And there's days where I've had to like slap my hand and not, pull up Google Docs on my work computer and write things down. And I'm like, I could have just banged down a 12-page script just now if I didn't have, needed this paycheck. So the Notes app on my phone is my savior. If I ever lost that, I have that link to the cloud. So that's a very important tool in my life.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm very, now granted, I really like my job. I do esports for Lenovo, and to an extent. I mean, it gets into more of that, but that's the gist of it. And it's worldwide, so I talk to all these cool people around the world. But when I get home, or I really, even though this is a grind, and I'm sure it is for you as well, there is something about it that I feel like, where it used to be writing, and I still have little bits and pieces where I want to write more. Like I want to do issue 2 of Chimera. Because it's mainly written. I want to publish it potentially, but then I'm like, well, all this my time, and then so we start working on the site. We have an app coming. We have print on demand coming, but then I get to do stuff like this and meet really cool people that I almost live vicariously through. So I understand completely what you're doing, and I'm super happy for you for making that happen.
Thank you.
And people like you, so I feel like I'm almost putting my projects on hold because as much as I would like to do them, I get just as much joy out of helping other people gain even another follower or another person that's read it. And I think that's what I like doing.
I agree with you 100%. There's a indie community that I didn't realize a year ago until I got involved with all this, that they're can be so supportive, and you can't do this alone. You can't create comic books alone. You could write, color, letter, and print all your comic books by yourself, but you still need other people to help you out. So I've been fortunate enough that I have some local other indie creators in my town that have really helped me out a lot. Travis Gibb, he's an indie writer. He has a book called Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies.
Oh,
and
I just met him.
Yeah, I think I might have. I'll take the credit for that, Jeff. I think I put him on to Spinwhiz. Great guy. He's helped me out a lot with just the process, to get from step 1 to step 2, and he's really good at Kickstarter. And then I have another friend, David Galliano, who recently got published with Mad Cave Studios.
Ooh.
He won a talent hunt in 2018, and he got to take on one of their IPs, and now he's has a book that's available in nationwide, any comic book store that has a Diamond account. So me and him linked up, and we're helping each other out. Even if it's just sharing tweets and Facebook posts, you can't do it alone. I could go on forever. All the people in my community that have helped me out. There's just, like I said, you can't do it alone. Community is so important. Not just your local community, but your online community. So it's for the most part, the comic book business, there's there's way more good people than there are bad people.
Oh yeah, it is a tight knit community, mainly because everybody's been through the same damn thing.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
There's no one that's just walking into it and being instantly successful. There's maybe like less than 1%, if that could be quantified.
Yeah, I mean, very rarely does it happen if somebody gets picked up and it's just an immediate success.
Right.
And even if you talk to a lot of people, they were potentially unsuccessful, or what they felt was unsuccessful in their full-time job. They had been writing for like 20 years. And finally, even though that wasn't their main thing, and they would just they would just doodle and stuff like that, and something would catch.
Yeah.
And they're like, then they say, well, you weren't here before. You're like, dude, I've been doing business and writing in different formats for 20, 30 years. Yeah. And this is just the first thing that actually took off, and it happened to be a comic. And they're like, it was just on a fluke.
Yeah.
But that's 30 years of experience that is just unheard of. So it happens a lot. And I think that's awesome. That you do something else and that you're keeping on it. So are you going to try to submit these to some bigger publishers, or are you going to stick with self-publishing for a while?
I think with Freak Show Princess, I have plans for like companion pieces for it. I had a lot of feedback with people saying they liked it, but they didn't like how finite the ending is.
Yeah, they wanted more.
Exactly. So I do have plans. I'm hoping I would love to be able to do like the Freak Show Princess came out last year in October. So if I could do a spin-off or a side quill or companion piece every October, fitting for Halloween.
Oh, perfect.
but all of them would have like the Freak Show title, but Freak Show something else. And I would love to keep on bringing back the same creative team. Uh, with Capable, maybe after I have a few more issues out, because the publishers, they really want to know it. If they're gonna sell this, they want to have more than one issue.
Yeah, they want four to six in the tank already.
Exactly. And not every comic book can be sold by every publisher. There's some publishers that just have, a certain niche, or they like a certain art or a certain writing style.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll definitely wait for more for Capable before I start pitching that one. I do have another title that it's called The Recount.
Ooh.
That I'm right now I'm avoiding self-publishing. Issue 1 is 100% complete in the can. Issue 2 is almost complete, and that's one I'm not even going to print till at least I have 4 or 5 completely finished. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to sell that to some publishers. So there, with that being said, there has been some small bites with that one. Hopefully, I can maybe make an announcement within the next few months about that.
Awesome.
But really excited about that one. That's my other pet project. So I'll talk about more of that if we have the time for that, Jeff.
Yes, please go into it. This is all the good stuff. Nobody knows about this yet. Like, this is like breaking news.
So The Recount is a political thriller, and again, totally different genre, as you might see now.
I guess,
horror book, superhero book, political thriller, and it has a lot of timely themes to it. With takes place in America, where we have a corrupt president who and no real politicians are mentioned in this, and not even the word Democrat or Republicans mentioned. Those terms never get used.
Okay.
So the corrupt president gets impeached, and he is assassinated very early in the story. And as this issue plays out, we realize that there was a conspiracy / cult that's growing that not only wants that president dead, and they succeeded, but now they're going after anyone that helped him get into power.
Oh, damn.
So, including anyone who voted for him. So, hence the title, The Recount. So, my elevator pitch is that it's House of Cards meets The Purge.
Yeah.
So, it's a very violent book, and it's going to be shocking. And I started seeing like the art come back, I'm like, oh wow, I wrote that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's another team my art team is I really lucked out. So my artist, his name is Gabriel Ibarra Nunez. He is from Chile, and he did a book for Scout called Graveland. It's a 3-issue series.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool book. That one's about like modern day story with giants and stuff like that. I'm not doing that one justice. Sunil Gagar, who did the colors for Freak Show Princess, is returning for The Recount. Beautiful colorist. And then my letterer, his name is Christian Dokolomansky. He's also done several books with Scout, including he's also an inker. Inking is his first, trade, but he also does lettering on the side. He's done books for Scout like Jazz Legend and Zenobur, and he's got something coming out soon for heavy metal. So somehow I stacked the deck.
Holy crap! Talk about stepping into like a dream team.
I know. I've been really lucky with that. So that's the book that I'm going to avoid self-publishing till I feel like I've exhausted all my avenues with publishing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean that just by the sounds of it, that sounds like something that either Scout would pick up, or Vault, or
fingers crossed.
and maybe Aftershock.
Yeah.
Might dig that. And then even On the outside of that, somebody like, well, it's kind of its own kind of IDW maybe, but any of those three, with Vault and Scout really coming up, and Source Point Press would be another really good one.
Yeah. And fortunately, there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot as in it's not saturated, but there's a good amount of indie publishers nowadays with the resources to distribute your book. You just have to have something that's worthwhile for them. It's long gone is just the big two. You don't have to write Spider-Man and Batman. You can come up with something great and it can be successful.
Yes, that's exactly why I launched this, because there's so much great content. I don't even read Marvel and DC anymore because I'm so bored with them that there's all this really sick content that I happen to be, distributing.
Right.
And I can't even read through it all. Like, there's just so much good stuff.
Right.
Many good stories, different ways of thinking, things that don't fit in that small box. And that's why we're never going to have Marvel and DC on the site. They're going to have to buy me in order to put the content on the site.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to lie to you, my wife would love a beach house someday. So maybe right back in Clearwater. Who knows?
Yeah.
With the houses that are like, starting at $5 million a piece or something like that.
White talcum powder sand as your backyard.
Yeah, bummer. Sounds awful.
It'd be terrible.
I think we've got a couple more weeks before that happens, so we got some time.
Sure.
Well, I mean, so you're really entrepreneurial in this. Like, you're going head on. Like, you're hiring great people, but you're meeting them first, it sounds like. And when you pitch them, they're kind of like, oh, yeah, I would try that. Is that the way it's happening? Like, are they just kind of falling into place?
Yeah, well, I usually find my artist first, the person that I want to pencil and ink, and I prefer, since I'm shelling out the money to commission this work, I prefer to have someone that pencils and inks, and they usually have someone that they recommend, and I'll reach out to who they recommend if I didn't have someone already in line, and I think that's the best way to go is if they've worked with someone before and they have already a working relationship, why not keep that? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. So like Gabo, the artist for the recount, he mentioned Christian, the letterer, and they're both from Chile, and so why not?
Don't break that boat.
And both of them have been published too. So why not? And their prices were reasonable, and I've had a great experience. I feel like even though I've never been in the same room, I'm not even in the same country as them, we've built this relationship since we started the very first issue of the recount. So really care for them, and through conversations over the phone, we've all have gone through something at some point in time in this less than a year. Like in Chile, late last year, they had those riots that hardly anyone in the U.S. knew about, and so they both reached out to me and like, hey, we might be behind on work because we can't even leave the house to go get groceries right now. I'm like, oh man, that's sad.
Yeah.
And then now with the stuff going on in the world that almost everyone's experiencing, we're not immune to the trials and tribulations of life. So after you've worked with someone so long, they become like a family to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I feel the same way. Unfortunately, when I had Chimera, I had worked really well with my artist who did. He did pencils and inks and design. So he was actually the one doing character design with me, which was awesome, and he and I would just crush it. And unfortunately, he passed away about a year and a half ago.
Oh man, sorry
from cancer. Oh, he was a great dude, just great. But very few people to have that relationship, and I paid him too, so that helped. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that don't pay, and they're like, "Oh, I'll pay you half now," and whatever. But he and I just flowed together. Mm-hmm. And then we brought in our colorist, Marlene Yegan, who had done a bunch of stuff for Dynamite and had done some stuff for Dark Horse. And he came in because Bong had worked with him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know a guy that can crush this. And we went through Glasshouse Graphics, so the project manager or the coordinator of that knew both of these guys, knew they worked together, brought in a pencilist that had worked with them in the past, and the whole comic, 24 pages, was done in 3.5 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's
like color to print in 3.5 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
It
Yeah, I'd love to have
ridiculous.
done that time. Yeah.
It just now I will say that was the comic in general. It took about another week of character design, but to have that whole thing in the can within 4.5 weeks is unheard of.
Right.
The only time that you do that is when you are literally, to my knowledge, 12 or 15 issues deep. They're all written, and you've paid for them all, and you're just cranking them out. Like your person just goes from one page to the next, and then you box X amount together, knowing that you're gonna have a little bit more time. So it's one, you launch one this month, and next month or month and a half, and you stack them or stagger them. But holy shit, he was awesome. Yeah,
that time frame, that's awesome. Yeah, I would love to have something like that.
Yeah, well, it was also $6,000.
Yeah, the money that plays a lot with the turnaround time too, and the quality. I hate to say it, it's another thing that I think a lot of people can't get into, is because you need, as a writer, you need to have that disposable income somehow, and you're not going to get that money up front with through a Kickstarter or any other crowdfunding without some proof first, and no one's gonna back you with just some sketches and an idea.
And they always say, as part of business, you can either have it good, fast, or cheap. Pick two.
Exactly.
You can't have all three.
Right.
So I went with the fast and excellent people, and I paid top dollar, not top dollar, but really high for me, for self-funding. And man, the stuff I learned within 4.5 weeks was just mind-blowing.
Right.
And again, people have asked me to bring Chimera back out and put issue 2 out, but I'm like, again, there's too much work to do for you guys, and it just, and that's what I like right now. So eventually, if this takes off and I can actually hire people to do a little, help me with social marketing and media, I will almost always do this. It's one of the joys of this job, is chatting back and forth. But besides that, maybe someday.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. I appreciate what you're doing for everyone else, though, in the meantime. So.
Yeah, eventually someday when you become super huge, you can, and I can be like, I actually know Jonathan. I can write. He might not get back to me because he's super busy and he might remember me from years ago, but I can introduce you, and I'll drop your name like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So we have a couple minutes left. We've covered a ton. I think, again, everybody, the links are below. If you're in Twitch right now, the links are already there. Check out Jonathan's stuff. It's really fantastic. The new title sounds awesome. I hope it gets picked up when it finally does. Obviously, let me know.
Sure.
And you and I are under mutual NDA as well, so you can always share stuff with me. But on the show, you let me know. We can always introduce, especially if you find out during your Kickstarter for Capable.
Yeah.
Then we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and really get the hype going. So
yeah, that'd be great.
That would be awesome. And if you need anything in the meantime, obviously let me know.
Cool. Definitely.
That's what I do. Anything else you want to talk about before we take off tonight?
If we have a little bit more time, there's another project that's
you are part full of them. Bring it.
I know, man.
Bring it.
So I was invited to be part of an anthology that's probably going to come out later this year. It's going to be released on Kickstarter, and it's called Cthulhu Invades Oz. And
awesome.
It's going to be different Wizard of Oz characters during the Cthulhu invasion of their world. And I was fortunate enough to write the Tin Man story, which it's only an 8 to 10 page. I wrote it months ago, so sorry if I can't remember the page count. But I impress myself if I can have that chip on my shoulder for a second. it's gonna be so cool. I'm so excited because there's so many other like, wh- I'm the freshman of this anthology. There's so many good other indie creators on this book. Uh, but keep an eye out for that. That's going to be another Kickstarter book. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to make sure I plugged that. There's a long more time to go for that. But yeah, that Tin Man story is going to, I think, hopefully rock some socks. It's like Tin Man meets Moby Dick. So
Oh, that's awesome.
he's out on the sea, which probably isn't the best thing for a man that's made out of
lots
tin.
of oil.
Yep. And he's got that Captain Ahab vendetta against Cthulhu. So I hope I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So that one's getting penciled and inked right now. So by another artist.
Can you say who's publishing it?
It's my friend that I mentioned earlier, Travis Gibb. He's the one he's organizing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's gonna be that's his project right now. He has been organizing it and reached out to all the different creators and assigned different stories to them. So that'll be his Kickstarter, and I was fortunate enough in an early part of me being so short in this game to be invited to that. So it's going to be really cool.
Awesome. Well, he knows where to find me if he needs me.
Yes.
Not for writing. I'm on pause for writing, but if obviously to put a big blowhorn behind it, especially if there's more people that I've already worked with that are part of it. I'm happy to bend my own rules a little bit and bring them on the show to promote it for the Kickstarter and stuff.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I mean, I own the company. I can do whatever the hell I want. But
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That should be one of the biggest benefits of it.
That's right. So because you said that, I don't want to keep you for too much longer because I know you have stuff to do, but it is very rare to have to create a story around an iconic character from something like Oz. Did you feel a lot of pressure or some sense of dread that you would really screw it up for somebody that obviously is so well known throughout all of literature?
Well, my main concern with writing the Tin Man story was the legal stuff with that property. It's a real obscure rule because the book lives in like the free domain, but the stuff related to the movie doesn't. So yeah, you can't use dialogue that was used in the movie, and your characters can't look like the characters from the movie. You have to be based more on the book. So that was where I was mainly concerned with was I didn't want to step on in have the lawyers coming after me. And then the other part of it is I had to write a story that fits in this larger world that other writers are going to write about while making it my own. So that was an undertaking. But once I had the idea of making him this like conquistador out on the ocean, it was full speed ahead after that.
That's awesome. I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I would be, not to say that, I mean, you have just guts of steel. Just because that takes, obviously once you get through it and you get excited about it, that all disappears, right?
Yeah. Well, it also, if they would have came to me and offered me like a different character, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it too. They said, okay, here, write a Cowardly Lion 8-page story that fits in the Cthulhu universe. I probably would have been like, I would have thought about it for a couple of days and maybe nothing would have came to me. So it all depends.
I can't wait to see who's writing Dorothy.
Yeah, I believe Travis might be the one that's doing the short Dorothy story as like the outro to it, if I'm not mistaken.
Damn.
Yeah.
That guy's got guts too.
Yeah, he's hopefully you get a chance to read his work. He's been in it for a while. Smart guy. So.
Yeah, little bit knows his stuff. Well, listen, man, this was so much like I thought we were just going to talk about two kinds of content, and it ends up that you are a plethora of information and cool stuff you're doing. So obviously you know where to find me at any point in time that you need me, but we need to have you back on. Not only, talk to Travis, see if he wants to be on the show next for when this anthology goes, even though he and I might talk even before that.
Yeah.
And I'm almost positive I met him at C2E2.
I think he went there.
I'm almost positive. Because I remember that book and I remember the Kickstarter. So anyway, yes, but anything you have going on, make sure for all of you that are watching, go hook our boy up. All right. Jonathan does all sorts of cool stuff during the day in the healthcare industry, but the boy likes to write. So hook him up. If you'd like it, buy it. Kick his stuff. Or just go out and buy it at spinwhizcomics.com because he gets 70% of the profit. And that's it. So, Jonathan, you're the man. I mean, just what a fantastic interview. It's so nice to get to know you finally because we've been going back and forth through our day jobs and this, that, and everything. But absolutely fantastic. I look forward to working with you more. And that's it. But hang out for just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, hang out with me. I'm going to go say goodbye to Jonathan real quick. We're going to come back, and I don't know what the hell we're going to do. So maybe a game, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? But hang out just for a minute while I say goodbye to Jonathan. Spinwhiz Comics Show coming right back at you in un minuto.